Once upon a time, a company called Microsoft had a game called Scalebound. And then they didn't.
Now Nintendo might. Hot take.
Originally, this video was going to be us talking about a rumor that we heard about a little bit earlier, but it's gotten a little bit more complex than that. Now, that first rumor was that Nintendo was going to be releasing a game from an old IP that they haven't used in a very long time. So most people would consider that a dead IP coming back.
Yes.
And that rumor originated with Imran Khan.
Yes, Imran Khan is the senior editor at Game Informer. He was on Kinda Funny Games recently, and I'll just say his quote exactly. There's a game that's thought to be dead that Nintendo is reviving. So we're not sure if it's a Nintendo IP specifically. It would be easy for them to snatch up, hey, there's this F-Zero game or this Dragon Hopper game that's supposed to be released on the Virtual Boy that was finished, that never saw the light of day. Anyway, it'd be easy for them to take one of their own IP and revive it. But again, it was up in the air. So yeah, we had that rumor, and now recently we have another rumor about Scalebound coming back.
Yeah, so for those of you that may not remember this game, well, it wasn't too far ago.
Time Machine. Woo.
There was a game called Scalebound that was in development by Platinum Games, originally to be released on the Xbox One. However, to much of everyone's surprise, the game got canceled. We saw gameplay, we saw footage, we saw lots and lots of stuff about this game, and everyone seemed to be very positive about it. But something happened and the game got canceled. At least we heard it got canceled directly from Microsoft.
That's right.
Now, things might be changing.
Very much so. So, yes, Scalebound was announced at E3 2014, got canceled in 2017 for the Xbox platform, but it looked like we got a vertical slice video, we got a bunch of trailers. There was a heck of a lot of work put into Scalebound.
Yes, there was.
A lot of people were very excited about it, so hearing that this thing could be revived on the Nintendo Switch seems possible. I don't know. There's a lot of kind of like ifs and whys and buts, but this other rumor is coming from Alex Seedhouse, who is a writer at Nintendo Insider, and he wrote a piece that was saying, yes, Scalebound's coming back. Kind of vague on his sources, but he said, I have confidence in my sources to report that it is my understanding that Scalebound has been resurrected as a project to be released as a Nintendo Switch exclusive.
Now,
only coming to the Switch.
I gotta be honest, this is crazy, but we do know that Nintendo has an established relationship with the folks at Platinum Games because they're bringing games out to, like Bayonetta 3. They worked on Wonderful 101 back on the Wii U.
Star Fox Zero.
Star Fox Zero. We could forget about that one, but there was a bunch of games out there that they had worked on, and specifically with Nintendo.
That's right.
The idea of bringing back a Microsoft game to a Nintendo platform that never even came out in the first place sounds crazy until you think about the past where Microsoft did the exact same thing to Nintendo years and years ago on the GameCube. I'm talking about taking Rare away from them.
Yeah, that's true. We saw Banjo and Kazooie on the Xbox 360. A la Nuts and Bolts.
Yes, we did.
Remember Nuts and Bolts?
Actually, the original Banjo games are available on the Xbox 360 and on the Xbox One with Rare backwards compatibility.
And Rare Replay.
Rare Replay.
Yeah.
We got Perfect Dark. Like things that you would consider Nintendo properties back in the 90s and the early 2000s ended up leaving that house and entering Microsoft's domain. So it's not a crazy thing to see something like this happen. What's crazier, though, is to see things in development happen. Now, this has happened several times with games that were supposed to be released on one platform, then changing over to another, but technically you never see it happen kind of within the same generation. And when we're looking at the Xbox One and the Switch so close to each other, it's weird to see that happen in such a dramatic fashion.
Yeah, and even though they are of a similar like console lifespan, it's interesting to think about how this title may change as it's adapted possibly to the Nintendo Switch. Shane and I had a little joke as we were watching the gameplay, and we're like, maybe Scale Down is a better name for the game, because
there's some frame drops going on, okay? That was not a consistent run in the demo that we saw.
So there's already frame drops and issues on an Xbox One system.
We assume Xbox One-like platform, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, the gameplay demo that we saw had some considerable loss of frames there. There was a lot of graphic techniques and things that were being used in play that I personally don't believe you would see on a Nintendo Switch. Not that a Nintendo Switch isn't a powerful little handheld, but remember, it's still is a handheld. And it needs to be able to run this game in portable mode as well as docked. So while docked, you might get a better performance, which is the case with most Nintendo games out there on the platform. When it comes to handing something going around in handheld, it changes a bit, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm kind of looking at this, at the gameplay chunks that we have gotten for Scalebound on the Xbox platform, and I'm kind of thinking, well, will Platinum be capable of either being quite faithful to that, what they have there, and like the frame rate was already pretty bad, so they would have to do something there to figure out how to make things run smoothly, or take what is Scalebound, what they had already produced, and maybe have a similar aesthetic, but change the art style a little bit. Let's get something that's a little more cel shady.
Sure.
I mean, Platinum Games has made a lot of cartoony and beautiful looking games. I think about like Wonderful 101, for example.
Yes.
Astral Chains, that's going to be coming out on the Nintendo Switch, also has kind of that sort of cel shaded cartoony look to it. So if they did kind of draw back a little bit, not so much with the we were seeing a lot of lighting and particle effects and things in the Scalebound gameplay.
That's got to go away a little bit, right?
Yeah, cut back on that kind of stuff.
Now, one thing we did make note of is when we saw the gameplay demo, at the very end, they introduced a bunch of other players coming onto the scene to show a multiplayer sequence of the game. Now, we don't know if the entire game can be played multiplayer, but does that actually transfer from the original concept for the Xbox onto the Switch, or does the Switch become a single-player game? I mean, what we were seeing there, a lot of that gameplay kind of feels like, I want to say Monster Hunter with a monster on your side, right?
Yeah, well, kind of. When you read a little bit into what Scalebound's supposed to be, and take into consideration the games that Platinum's already made, they've made a lot of single-player type experiences. And Scalebound, even though we didn't see the final product, we did hear a little bit about the story. So it is very story-driven, and it doesn't sound like you can have an avatar character per se. So I think if there are multiplayer aspects of it, they're not quite as tweakable as something like Monster Hunter. You're playing as one character in it, and that's Drew. You probably know him as the headphones dude if you've been watching Scalebound for a long time. There's a story that incorporates a dragon that you meet and you're bound to. So it's there does seem like a very
Scalebound.
Exactly. Yeah, you get a dragon arm.
Yeah.
You're bound by the scales. Yeah. So, I don't know. So multiplayer would be cool, but it seems like a more traditional Platinum single player.
You'd think we would have known a lot more about this game, having been in the public consciousness for as long as it has been. Yeah,
developing for like 2.5 or 3 years, as far as we know. Like, it was shown off at E3 2014, but it was probably in development before that.
Probably. So this is a very interesting thing, though, because honestly, it's not the idea that this game could be coming back, because it all could be a rumor still, right? The idea of this game specifically making a return may not be a thing, but why did this happen if it is going to happen? So there are a ton of things to think about here. Is there a new relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo that is coming underneath everything?
Yeah, that's a great point to raise, because we were just recently speaking about a lot of things that Xbox and the Switch have kind of been, bundling together. Like a cross-platform play has become more of a thing. Recently, we spoke about how Xbox Live will be coming to the Switch. It's rumored to be so, maybe even more than rumored, because there's a talk specifically about that for developers. So it seems like there is a lot of handshaking going on between Microsoft and Nintendo on those fronts. So I'm wondering if there's that sort of good faith relationship has allowed them access to the Scalebound IP. Microsoft did renew their rights to Scalebound, and then that had lapsed. So I don't know if that was Nintendo that kind of swooped in and grabbed up Scalebound.
Could have been.
Bayonetta 2 had the same sort of issue, where Bayonetta 2 was in development for a while, and then it was kind of canceled. A lot of people don't remember that. Like, development had ended, and then eventually Nintendo came in, swooped in, and helped Platinum Games finish Bayonetta 2.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that case.
It really could be. I think something to consider as well, that when we think about the Xbox platform and we think about the Switch, I don't really think they're in competition right now. I mean, if they are, Xbox is struggling every single day, because they are kind of at the end of their lifespan and they don't have enough exclusives. But if Microsoft and Nintendo were to find some middle ground where Nintendo is the portable powerhouse, Microsoft is the home powerhouse, and there was some kind of correlation between those two things, that could be a good way for the next generation of systems to start and to show more of a unity about making games. Because at the end of the day, I think it's good to have competition in the market between all these companies, but I don't care about the boxes. I've always cared about the games. Nintendo games are some of my favorite games ever made. I would not care if that was on my PC, if it was on a PlayStation 4. I just want to play Nintendo games. And sometimes the hardware can limit what those games are capable of, whether it be the frames per second, whether it be its online performance. So if there was some kind of relationship there that they could build, it would be a big deal for both parties.
Yeah, if both parties played nice, you'd have a really powerful Xbox One X hardware that could play specific titles, maybe some Nintendo titles, and then you could maybe take some Microsoft titles with you on the go at the Switch as well. One thing that I wanted to talk about, we were talking about software, is that we've had some, ever since the Direct, we've had some games pushed back. Things like there's always games coming to the Switch, but bigger titles that are like more exciting to the public eye. There's not that much going on for Nintendo until much later this year. We have Yoshi's Crafted World and maybe one or two other titles, but there's not a heck of a lot. Do you think Scalebound could come out anytime soon? Do you think it could fill in any sort of gap? I don't assume so, but wouldn't it be insane if they're like, yeah, all we had to do is turn down the settings from 10 to 7, and it works, and it's done.
You know what? We don't know how much effort was put into this. Look, for all we understand, the game was pretty much closely done, maybe, and then they just decided to turn things up. Because look, what if Microsoft turned down the game initially because they were looking for an online competitive thing and they did not see that coming into fruition here?
Yeah, sure.
And then maybe behind the scenes, Nintendo had already reached out to, or was already talking to Platinum. We know they were talking to Platinum and said, look, just keep working on this game a little bit more, show us an example, and if we like it, it can come up on the Switch. Now, that means they're going to have to scale down their vision a little bit just for it to survive on the Switch platform, but look, weirder things have happened. This could be something that could have actually transpired, and if it did, I think it's a good thing. Scalebound looks exciting. It looks like a really neat kind of game. Shocked that Microsoft would give up on it no matter what the reason be, but at this point it may actually come back, and that's exciting for every gamer out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people remember Scalebound as that one exclusive coming to the Xbox One that was kind of an action role-playing, like Japanese-inspired fantasy game. It looked so odd and so different that a lot of people were talking about it, and it was coming exclusive to like a Western console.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot to discuss there. It's become this sort of elusive lost game. If nothing else, this title coming to the Switch is huge news. I hope the game runs very well. I do think they'll have, like you said, they'll have to knock things back a little bit. But I think the core gameplay there is very similar to other Platinum games, and those have worked on lesser hardware.
Yes, they have.
It's fine. Platinum knows how to make good playing games.
Yes, they do.
I hope that this is what this is.
You know, if I were to really guess about things, I don't believe that Microsoft and Nintendo had a secret conversation behind E3's like alleys, and they're like, okay, we're going to give you Scalebound, you give us something. Like, I don't think anything like that happened. What I believe went down here is that Microsoft had some issues. But look, we know Microsoft didn't release enough games recently. There's barely any exclusives on their platform right now. The ones that are there are struggling to survive. So we know that that is something that happened. We also know that Microsoft went around and bought, like everyone they could find, they bought. They bought every single company that they could basically get their hands on. Maybe Nintendo decided to buy Platinum. Maybe it's a secret that hasn't happened yet or hasn't been resolved yet. We don't know, but this is showing us something that's going on.
Yeah, I'll give you this: the Switch. If this rumor is to be considered true, the Switch is becoming the Platinum console.
Yeah,
right. We have a rumor of Wonderful 101 possibly coming back to the Switch, whether it's a sequel or the original. Yes. We have Bayonetta 2 that had already come out, and Bayonetta 3 is on its way. Astral Chain is on its way, and then Scalebound. The only thing that I'm worried about with all this is whether or not Platinum Games themselves is spreading themselves too thin.
Could be.
It sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Really
do they have a large enough team?
We don't know.
So many questions!
But I firmly believe that this is something that Nintendo orchestrated themselves. I don't believe Microsoft was involved, as little as they needed to be involved to get rid of whatever the IP was. But I think that this is something that's kind of showing us what the next generation of is going to be like. With the introduction of the next Xbox, you're going to see Microsoft introducing so many exclusive games onto their platform, it's going to be crazy. You're going to see Sony trying to achieve something different, maybe, because we know that they're trying to do a lot of in-house things as well. And Nintendo really wants to push that mobile focus. I mean, if they can do it properly, no one can compete with them in that field, because at the end of the day, and it's still happening to me right now, when I'm thinking about Scalebound coming to the Switch, I'm like, oh, I can play this game wherever I go now. And that's not what Scalebound was going to be originally, and that makes it exciting. And there are plenty of third-party games being released on all platforms that anytime I think about getting them, if I know the game is going to run well enough on the Switch, I'm getting it on the Switch. So we're in this place right now, and it's really weird.
It's exciting.
Look, maybe Scalebound isn't the game that's going to happen. Could be any other kind of game, and we do know that at least most likely there is a Nintendo game in development that used to be dead and is now back. What game do you think it's going to be? Is it Scalebound or is it something else?
Dragon Hopper.
Could be.
For the Virtual Boy.
Probably not.
It's finished.
It's not.